Greetings, my wonderful students. Today we look at our review of World War II. This image is from the time around D-Day, the invasion of Normandy. We'll get into that more later. First, we start off with the League of Nations. Now, the League of Nations was like a precursor to the United Nations, and it was a weak organization. They did not enforce their sanctions of aggressive countries very strongly. For example, Germany had invaded areas and bullied other countries into getting land. Ethiopia had been attacked by Italy, and the League of Nations really didn't do anything. Japan had invaded China, and the League of Nations really hadn't done anything. And the U.S. had never joined the League because we had felt that problems in other parts of the world were really not our business. Aggression. Japan attacked Manchuria, section of China, to gain control of its natural resources. Japan tried to take control of China through war. Mussolini attacked Ethiopia and took control. And in 1936, German troops entered the Rhineland, which technically was part of Germany, of course, but it was in direct violation of the Treaty of Versailles. And in 1938, Germany annexed Austria, which was also a violation. 1938 also saw the Munich Conference. Now, pictured over here is Neville Chamberlain, Prime Minister of Britain, with Germany becoming more powerful again, and a threat of war began to occur. Germany demanded the Sudetenland, part of Czechoslovakia, which had about 1 million ethnic Germans living in it. And Czechoslovakia refused to give him the land and basically started mobilizing their forces. Because Chamberlain and other individuals were afraid of a possible world war at the time, they basically gave in to Hitler's demands. They appeased him. Appeasement is giving in to an aggressor's demands in the hopes that war would be prevented. And Chamberlain declared, "We've achieved peace in our time." And there he is holding the paper up that has his signature and Hitler's signature on it, saying that this was it. He wasn't going to ask for anything more. And then in 1939, Hitler took control of not just the Sudetenland, but the rest of Czechoslovakia. And after Czechoslovakia's destruction, Britain and France realized Hitler's not going to stop. So they begin to make connections and their hope and overtures towards the Soviet Union, hoping that because the Soviets and the fascists hate each other, communists and fascists did not like each other, it repeatedly called for each other's destruction, the British and French are hoping that they could get Soviet help in their war that they're planning on fighting against Hitler. Well, in August of 1939, Germany and the Soviet Union signed a non-aggression pact. They're not going to help each other, but they agree not to attack each other. And this kind of pulls the rug out from under the French and the Brits, so they're going to have to go it alone. And this political cartoon shows the two, Hitler and Stalin, bowing to each other and taking their hats off in a sign of respect. But you'll notice that the words, "the scum of the earth," I believe, "the bloody assassin of the workers," I presume, show that the way they were acting didn't match what they had spoken. And so too with this alliance, the way they had acted, creating this non-aggression treaty, did not match their rhetoric, their words towards each other, that that they needed to be destroyed. They also agreed to divide Poland between the two of them. And in September 1st, 1939, Hitler's forces invaded Poland, and Britain and France declared war on Germany. And that's the official beginning of World War II in Europe. Now, the Soviets were angry at German expansion in the Balkans, and the Soviets demanded more influence there. Hitler refused and attacked the Soviet Union. Now, this is over a year later. And it was a rather huge surprise, as this political cartoon shows you the Russo-German pact, and then here's Hitler hugging Stalin and stabbing him in the back. The Russians used the same scorched earth policy against Hitler that they had used against Napoleon. The Russian winter hit, and the German army retreated for the first time since the war began. And this political cartoon shows that, specifically the Battle of Stalingrad, which was pretty nasty. And there's the ghost of Napoleon saying, "At least I took Moscow first." And there's the German troops retreating. The United States moved the bulk of its fleet to Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, in case it needed to move against the Japanese. The U.S. had been very concerned about Japanese aggression in China and started an embargo, a refusal to trade with Japan specifically of scrap iron and oil, which the Japanese needed if they were going to continue their war strategy. Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, bringing the U.S. into the war. Now, Japan's strategy was to basically, hopefully, knock out the bulk of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, conquer as much land as territory in Southeast Asia, and hold on to it, dig in, and they hoped that we would not have the stamina, the endurance to fight a long, drawn-out war. And that was their strategy, basically, to wait us out. June 6, 1944. Yes, I'm skipping over large sections of the war here, just giving you the big important events. June 6, 1944, the invasion of Normandy, the largest sea-to-land invasion, amphibious invasion of all time. Within 1 month, more than 1 million troops had landed in France. And this is going to lead to victory in Europe. The British, French, and U.S. forces pushed into Germany from the west, and the Soviet forces pushed into Germany from the east. The key point here is that D-Day forced the Germans to fight a two-front war, and splitting their forces. Hitler committed suicide April 30th, 1945. Germany surrendered May 7th, 1945. Well, that still leaves Japan as the only Axis power remaining, because Italy had been defeated by the Allies in 1943. August 6, 1945, the city of Hiroshima was destroyed by an atomic bomb. Japan did not surrender. August 9th, 1945, the Japanese city of Nagasaki was destroyed by an atomic bomb, and Japan surrendered. Now, the Holocaust. This started to come to light in the process of the European liberation of Europe. Hitler had believed that the Jewish people were the source of all of Germany's problems. His solution to that problem was to kill as many of them as he could. If you see this on the Regents exam, he talks about the final solution. If you ever see those terms, the final solution with the capital F and the capital S, they're discussing the Holocaust. Approximately 6 million Jewish people died in the concentration camps. Now, this would help lead to support for the formation of Israel after the war. The idea that the Jewish people should be allowed to have their own homeland, their own country, so that they could migrate to, so this level of discrimination couldn't happen again. The Nazi leaders were put on trial in Nuremberg, Germany, for war crimes and crimes against humanity. They were judged by a tribunal made up of Russian, French, British, and American judges, and many of them were sentenced to death. And this is the end of World War II.